sheep and pretty much finish the whole thing.
Much like the day before, we spent a better part of our working hours at a Tibetan Buddhist monastery. But unlike the day before, weather was beautiful. Tibetan Buddhism is one of the major religions of Inner Mongolia. Back when Kublai Khan founded the Yuan dynasty, Tibetan Buddhist leader Ba Saba was named the first imperial preceptor, or Di Shi, meaning teacher of the emperor. Now that's a title you can't mess with. Tibetan Buddhism was also prevalent during the Qing dynasty, which was when this temple was built. This temple is called Wudangzhao, which is a Chinese transliteration of its Mongolian name meaning willow temple. I don't remember seeing willows, but we did see a lot of other trees. Its Tibetan name means white lotus, and legend has it that the temple's founder was led here by a bird when it wrapped his hat and dropped it here. The Tulku was amazed by the rolling hills that resembled a lotus, and believed that it was destined to build a temple here. It is the largest of its kind in Inner Mongolia, and distinguished for its purely Tibetan design without Mongolian or Han Chinese elements. Clearly, the Tibetans have shaped Mongolian culture and society, and so too folks from Shanxi province to the south. This part of Inner Mongolia shares borders with the province of Shanxi, and people in this region enjoy a type of noodles called youmai, made from a kind of oats called youmai. Now, Wuchuan County, North Hot, is famous for this kind of youmai noodles, but we missed that. So we're gonna try some out here in Baotou. Oh, and this restaurant over here is pretty famous too. But we're gonna skip that and go next door to Xibei Youmiancun, the Rustic Youmian Village. Let's see how rustic this place is. So let us start with a rustic food at this rustic place, Shuanzhou, South Congee. Story goes that in the 17th century, when popular rebel leader Li Zicheng was anticipated to pass by a village somewhere around this greater region, peasants rejoiced and cooked rice to welcome the troops. However, the army took another road and the unconsumed rice went sour, but soured in a good way. Oops, another happy accident. Seems like that's frequently the case with fermented foods. I don't know what kind of rice was used back then, but nowadays it's usually frozen millet. Some say that when a grain is fermented, the resulting porridge has better texture and flavor. That's subjective, of course, but more sour for sure, which suits the general preference in Shanxi, where folks have a penchant for sour foods and people even drink vinegar, literally. Well, some do, but not those I know in person. Other than excellent vinegar, Shanxi province is also famous for many things like noodles, including the aforementioned Youmian.
I talked about Mongol-style cheese platter a couple of videos ago, and now noodles platter.
Youmian noodles are steamed and made from a kind of oat called youmai. Youmian noodles might not come in as many forms as pasta, but still more than you can count with both hands. You got 3 of these in the steamer. In the middle were the wo, also known as kao lao lao. Water temperature is key for both mixing the dough and subsequent steaming. The result has to be absorbent enough to soak up soup and al dente enough to stand up, but not so raw and rigid as to feel coarse to the lips and tongue. Moving outward, we have the tiao or strips, basically the typical noodles form, but shorter. Lining the outside with tun. To make this type of youmian with fillings, a flat sheet of dough will be used to roll up julienne, potato, carrot, etc., creating something like a long cannelloni, then divided into short segments. Youmian is often eaten with some sort of soup or sauce served on the side or on the noodles. People say that options such as tomato with pork are popular in Shanxi because of the sourness and availability of pork, while in Inner Mongolia, mutton soup like this yang rou tang is preferred. We also have this liang tang or cold soup, a mixture of vegetables bathed in chili oil and vinegar used for eating noodles cool, almost like a soupy pasta salad. Well, I ain't a salad kind of guy, so meat is always a must. We had yang tao dao shuan, sheep's head with mashed garlic. Unlike the Icelandic spiel or Norwegian smalahov, which are sheep's heads cooked intact, yang tao dao shuan requires removing the meats to be stir-fried or steamed alongside numerous ingredients and aromatics like red pepper and onion seen here, and most importantly, the namesake mashed garlic. Then everything would be returned to and served in the skull. As I dove head first into the head and plowed through the pile, I dug up this little tidbit.
Yeah, I think that might be sheep's brain.
Yep, that's the brain. The whole thing was lodged snugly in the cranium. To be honest, there was a time when I suspected that the skull was a reusable container with the meats coming from elsewhere, because the dish was so huge but so cheap, costing only 68 yuan. That's like 2 cups of Starbucks. But the brain squashed all doubts. This had to be a disposable head. Then I also found other mussels in their original forms still stuck inside the nooks and crannies where they belong. Since these parts weren't removed from the skull, they didn't undergo the second stir-frying and seasoning process, just braised during the initial step, so they tasted slightly different. It's almost like one head cooked two ways.
Xibei, you pretty much finished the whole thing. Fantastic.
The same could be said for the rest. A fantastic dinner at the Rustic Youmian Village during a second and last night in terrific Baotou. 再见!